All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of our Mappy Hour Maker Series. Really excited for this one tonight. I'll get into why in a second. First, I want to do a few Mappy Hour announcements. One is that we're really appreciative to Sierra Nevada Brewing Company for hosting and sponsoring this event and actually the whole series. We go to them with these creative ideas and they're like, yeah, let's make it happen. So, super grateful to have a partner like them. And I also want to shout out that we have live events happening all over the country. DC relaunched last night. Seattle's holding a workshop on Friday. New York, Chicago, Bentonville, Denver events are coming up. So if you haven't been watching out on the website for upcoming events, I highly recommend it. And if you just stumbled upon this and you're like, what is she talking about? Mappy Hour is a community of urban dwelling outdoor enthusiasts. And I'm Sarah, I'm the founder, and our goal is just to bring together people who live in cities and love the outdoors. So we have virtual events, and then we also have in person events in select cities across the country. So mappyhour.org, probably where you're watching this, so you know where that is, but you'll be able to see upcoming events there and sign up for the newsletter to get updates. So tonight we have Jeremy Goldsmith. I'm really excited about Jeremy because I actually met him at one of our very first events in 2014. And he was a speaker, I think, at our third ever Mappy Hour, talking about cartography, talking about how maps get made. And this was all in New York City. And he ended up moving out to Colorado. And when he got there, he was like, there's no Mappy Hour here. There should be. And he helped to launch the Denver chapter. So for all of you Denverites, you can thank Jeremy for helping to get that going and setting the foundation for the team that's running it now. Shout out Liz and Heather. And with that, oh, and then one more announcement. Probably all of you saw Jeremy's amazing globes. I've been sharing them all over Instagram and our website. The giveaway is open through midnight tonight. So if you haven't entered, just go to our Instagram. You'll see directions on how to do it. It's really easy. You just put a caption on the comments and we'll pick someone tomorrow. So with that, I'm really excited to introduce Jeremy. Hey.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing great. Excited to have you here.
Thanks. Good to be here. Excited to be here to share a little bit and answer some questions and um, help uh, ship out this globe in the coming week to the winner as well.
Yeah. Okay, so I gave like the Mappy Hour Jeremy intro, but will you give the Jeremy intro that's outside of Mappy Hour? Like, who are you? What do you love doing outdoors? And how did you get into this whole cartography thing?
My I like it's so many different ways. I love when you people ask you like, "Who are you?" and "What's your background?" and you can just go any different which way
Yeah, I
with
just
it.
asked like 25 questions right there.
Um, my favorite thing to do in the outdoors is definitely number one is walking. So trekking, hiking, walking. Um, it's probably the most, um, I would say it resonates the most with me. It allows me to feel like my complete self. And I feel very much in gratitude when I get to do it. So it's the slower I go through the woods and through nature, the happier I am. Um, so um, my favorite thing to do in Colorado, where I live now, is hiking and trekking, mostly backpacking and car camping and day hiking. Um, and try to get a lot of that in the summer, and then in the winter it's same thing, hiking with skis and snowshoes, and then so touring, hut trips with friends, and then downhill skiing. I'm getting better at it. I started it 3 years ago, and I was a snowboarder for quite a while, and I decided to make the switch back over to skiing. So now I'm skiing and snowboarding, which has been a lot of fun. Um, yeah.
So I want to do a follow-up question before you keep going on the Jeremy story. So
Uh,
for everyone who's either visiting Colorado this summer or is in the Denver chapter, do you have a
mhm.
spot that you really love that you can share with everyone, either for like a day hike or a backpacking trip?
Well,
Just one though.
Well, we actually like for work, we've actually worked on like day hiking products and backpacking products for National Geographic. And I work on the trail maps at National Geographic as a cartographer. So designing a trail booklet or a hiking booklet, a guide booklet for people visiting. So if you want more information, I can plug the company I work for.
Yeah.
But I mean, yes, I mean, I have tons of places and like, it's just, there's a cognitive dissonance for me in my work, in my personal life, because I see so many geographies and places I do want to go that I've never been to. But if I research it for like 2 to 3 to 5 to 7 hours, and put a lot of time and effort into like a geography and a place I'm planning on going to, then I feel like I already know it because of the topography and the landscape and the geography. And I kind of like marry all the research together from a historical perspective, a cultural history and culture perspective, a geology and nature and environment perspective. And then, I mean, like I hiked the entire Tahoe Rim Trail back in 2018. And I had never hiked a long distance hike in my life. I had been to Tahoe a couple times before that, but by the time I got done with making a trail hiking product for National Geographic about the Tahoe Rim Trail and pouring like hundreds of hours of research and work into this product, by the time I got there, I didn't even need the map because it was all in my brain. Like I have a visual memory or semi-photographic, I can remember a lot of things after I look at them, graphically, like in a spatial form. So, my recommendation for people coming to Colorado is just, weekdays are better, and anything longer than 6 miles in is going to be better for that complete experience. So like a 12-mile day hike that's like perfect, I think, for almost any active person that's coming to Colorado. Yes, the elevation can get to you. Yes, drink extra water, carry a filtration device. Even if you're day hiking, it can really help, especially if you're out from like 6 a.m. till 6 p.m., 7 p.m. when the sun sets at 8. So, plenty of good alpine lakes and trails. And I mean, I would say, Continental Divide Trail / the Colorado Trail. Like if you can do a large stretch of that, it's pretty amazing. And there's a lot of just cool history around the national recreation trails in Colorado. One national recreation trail that people don't really know about is the Wheeler Trail. When the Wheeler Trail goes from Copper Mountain, partly goes from Copper Mountain Resort ski area up to the divide of the 10-mile range, or up to the ridge. And it's like 3,000 feet of vert over 5 miles, 6 miles. And then you get like sweeping panoramic views of Summit County and Breckenridge. And I mean, that's like a guaranteed like great hike because it's a national recreation trail. They maintain the trail very well. And it's only 2.5 hours from the airport.
Yeah, perfect.
So, but there's hundreds of
so
miles.
many.
I mean, there's probably thousands of miles of trails, I feel like.
Yeah. I don't know that stat, but many, many trails.
Yeah.
So what does it mean to be a cartographer at National Geographic? What do you do?
I work in trail mapping and recreation mapping. So it's referential mapping. So referential cartography it's referential cartography is displaying reference information for the user, based on like what the map is trying to tell the story of. So you have like a road atlas or a road map is going to be focused on a transportation network, and amenities linked to the transportation network. And then a recreation map is going to be everything that has to do with recreational content. So like you can pull back. So cartographers are authors basically, and we write the story in the map based on what we're trying to write about or what we're trying to display basically. So, and then there's thematic cartographers and thematic cartography, which is you take a theme and you design around the theme. My job is, for the most part, it's a specific geo-focused graphic designer, and for still images is what else, like like maps that stay in place for the whole time. Then there's a whole new subsection of cartography now called digital cartography, and basically automated digital and quote unquote live data cartography. So when you map in that ecosystem basically, or for that purpose, I don't really do it much, so it's hard for me to really speak to it. But my understanding is, you're working in code, designing in code in CSS and JavaScript, HTML, like various code formats to programmatically design the map that you interact with on an internet web page or an app or a digital product somewhere. So, and you can either use it, you can program a whole map in code, in line. You don't need, in markup basically. You don't need a GUI to do it technically. It's nice to have a GUI because then you're iterating your designs and you're building a digital web map. You kind of want to see what you're building as you're working on it. So cartographer, that's like I would call that a digital cartographer, or a geospatial, a front-end geospatial engineer is another descriptor for that, or web cartographer. I mean, there's tons of different names for it, but digital, like, what is your intent output?
Right. Okay, so you're making maps all day at work, and then you decide to start a company creating globes. I'm wondering, what was the inspiration behind that? How long have you been wanting to do it? And what got you to finally decide to launch the company? Uh-oh, I think Jeremy's frozen. All right. Well, while we wait for Jeremy to come back in, which he will hopefully do soon, if anyone is in the chat and wants to say hi, I would love to say hi. There is a live chat on the bottom of, oh, hey, Jeremy's back. Hey, all right. No, it's okay. I was just telling everyone they can put their questions, say hi in the chat, and we can see them. So everyone should be doing that. Jeremy, did you hear the question, or should I repeat it?
They didn't hear it.
Okay. So, you work for Nat Geo, you're making maps all day. How did you decide to take that and start making globes, and what was kind of the transition to starting your own business?
Well, it's not really, it's a business. I haven't registered a business, but I'm working on
project.
Getting the word. Yeah, it's a project right now. For sure. Not to dive, let's focus on the semantics, but
it's fine. We don't want the IRS coming after you.
Well, I wouldn't call it a business yet, for sure, because I don't put business effort levels into it. I work on the art project right now, so I'm still learning a lot about pyrography. And so, so how did this all like formulate in my brain? So in the world of cartography, there's also globe designers and globe makers. So I started like discovering my curiosities around who makes globes, why do they make globes, how do they make globes, where do they make globes, and what is the history of globe making. So I kind of did a like preliminary investigative like dive on that. and then found a company out of London that I really liked, and just kind of, and I applied for a job there before I got my job at National Geographic as the cartographer for Globes in London. They didn't hire me because I had no experience at the time. But I kept on following their work, and they kept on growing and growing and growing. And they've now sold many, many globes worldwide, and they're probably like, their globes show up in like set design. I mean, it's crazy. Can you hear me?
Yeah, your face is frozen, but we can hear you. Maybe we can't hear you.
Hello.
Hey, we can hear you.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So where did I leave
All
off?
right, so you're really into this company in London. They didn't give you a job. You ended up at Nat Geo. That's where we're at in the story.
Yeah. So I found them. I followed them. I kind of like took tabs, note taking on their Instagram, their website, everything on how they're doing their work. They have a lot of media outlets have done descriptions and articles about their background and their story. So I kind of just like took notes in mental notes, and then I went to a cartographic conference in 2016, 2015. Yeah, probably 2015 in Minneapolis, I believe, where I met some cartographers that were doing various cartographic art projects outside of their 9 to 5s, outside of their normal jobs, because they're so in love with with geography that they're like, oh, I want to make them, I want to make an artistic map for something, And then one woman was doing beautiful, she did like a booklet with like carved paper, like cut paper, but all the stock paper was like thick stock, and it was a topographic map of Crater Lake in a book, and you flip through the pages and you go deeper and deeper into the lake, and it was like physical. It was a physical map in a book, and you read the book. I was just like, this is so cool. So
cool.
Caroline, her name's Caroline, and she works for like the Geologic Office of Wisconsin. And she made a beautiful book about Crater Lake National Park and the lake, with, there's the island in the middle, and you got the topography of the lake and the island and the surrounding topography, and it's this topographic map book. It's like super cool. And then another gentleman was blowing up maps with gunpowder, which was super. Yeah, exactly.
I feel like you need to write a blog post for Mappy Hour that's like 10 cool cartographic art projects that you never imagined.
Yeah, exactly. I could totally do that. I've just found out about a guy here in Colorado Springs who makes wooden globes as well, but he does it like hand carving the wood with like wooden carving tools, and he like carves the ocean topography and the landforms into the wood. And he and his wife do amazing work. So he's carving, I'm burning. And so I didn't find out about his project until I started my project. And I started my project after realizing that pyrography was an art form that I was never really exposed to until a friend of a friend introduced me to this woman's art in Colorado. And she did these like beautiful murals, like the size of this, with a wood burning pen, but like just flat, like tigers and elephants, and like just, she did like wildlife, but burned into wood. Okay. And I was just like, incredible that you can like, so it's like and it's monochromatic. So it's just all different shades of burning. And you can do like dot patterns and shading and line work, and just like anything you could do with a pencil, you could do that with a wood burning tool on wood. And so I started reading all these blogs on pyrography, and then there's these great tutorials online. This woman who's been a pyrographic artist for like 20 years has written like a blog, and she's kept it up to date for like 20 years. And she's got like tips and tricks on how to start pyrography. And so I just kind of like went down that rabbit hole a little bit.
And can
And
you define pyrography again for everyone?
so pyrography is I think it's the art of burning wood.
Okay, cool.
I believe so. Pyrography is burning wood, basically, I think. But graphically, you're designing something, graph, right? And you're using a tool to burn wood, basically.
Pyro. Yeah.
Pyro. So I was like, oh, great. Like, I've always wanted to work with wood because I had a great wood shop teacher back in 9th grade. And I was like, I'm getting older now. I'm probably going to be able to afford a workshop studio eventually in the next few years, maybe in the next 5 to 10. Like, this will be my time to get introduced to, and then I met a gentleman. I forgot about this part. A gentleman from like a friend of a friend of a friend is a wood turner.
Okay.
And wood turning is the process of turning wood on a lathe, which is a machine. So you can make you can make bowls and spheres and pencils and pens and like wooden vase.
Cool.
And anything with a curve to it. So you put the block of wood on a lathe, and it has the endpoints coming in, and then it just spins at like thousands of revolutions per second or minute or whatever. I haven't even got into wood turning yet.
Right. Well, that's like the next phase of Pyro Globes.
That's the next phase once I get an expanded footprint in my home and like a workshop.
Yeah.
So who was the previous maker in the series? Justin, he got his space in Jersey.
Yeah.
And filled it with tools. That's my next move. It's like, I'm going to be calling Justin and be like, all right, what tools do I need? And I'm going to, like, for the baseline stuff, and I'm going to ask him, like, what's the best vacuum and the best, like, all that, and how I'm going to rig up the whole system to get it all operationally, like, automated so that I don't have to, like, clear sawdust out of my every nook and cranny of the workspace. But basically, that's the next phase of expanding my love and passion for what I'm doing. But back to so it all came. So the confluence of cartography. I know I wanted to do an art project. I was like, okay, I want to do an art project. I want to work with wood. Wood's the medium, but I want to do spherical wood because of the globe company that I remember that I studied 6 years ago. I was like, oh, is anyone? Then I kind of went into who in the world makes wooden spheres and who in the world makes wooden globes. And it's like less than 10 people in the entire world.
Wow.
Yeah.
And wait, there's another person who's in Colorado?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. There's like 10 to 20 people in the whole world that have tried to make a business out of making. No one's doing it because it's super laborious.
Yeah.
It's like and then when I looked online and I went out into the world to see who was doing it, I realized no one was a cartographer. Everyone was a woodsmith, wood maker, or a wood turner, or and I'm the only one doing it via pyrographic pen. Like other people, like one guy's doing it with wooden inlays, another person's doing it with carving the wood, another person's doing it with like I can't. There's a company out of Bali that's doing wooden globes, and he's like high-end luxury wooden globes for like the rich and famous and like French Fashion Week and all this stuff.
Cool.
And then there's a guy in Canada he's got like a machine, and he's doing like 3D printing of the wood with the topography. So his machine the router bit will spin and it'll cut the entire landform of all the continents, and then he'll have pieces of continents all like scattered, and he'll glue it all together to make one sphere.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
He's in British Columbia, and he and I talked. it's like a small little community world of people that want to see each other do well, because no one's really competing against one another, because there is no there's like no market for this. Basically, you have to like let people know that this is an option and that you can buy these things, but there's no
Right.
like,
I'm not like Googling wooden pyrographic globe
it's very
for
rare that
sale.
it's very rare that someone's going to Google that.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
so it's like, yeah, and then I don't even know my strategy for like marketing and sales down the line, because I don't even know who's my target market. Like, I need to do like focus groups and like figure
Right.
out who's going to be willing to spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, depending on my level of like time and effort on the projects. So,
Totally.
and then I was like, okay, I can't get a lathe to spin the wood, so I'll just buy the wood.
Yeah.
So I started with the softest wood I could figure out, which was a cottonwood, or basically a poplar ash, a poplar wood, like an aspen or a cottonwood. And then what I buy it from, like a like a construction supplier company, because they're used as like end caps on stair banisters in like, like like on a wooden like fancy staircase, at the end of the staircase, on the end of the handrail, you might have a sphere at the end of a handrail.
So you're just going and finding a sphere that's already made that's the right size.
That's cheap.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not about the size first. It was about
Okay.
cost. Because I was like, if I'm going to do this, I got to do it I got to like start and see if it's possible. And it is possible. So I started with the cheapest wood. Wood is very expensive if you want to buy it in spherical form. So, because they cut it with a router, they cut it with like a machine, and then they glue pieces together to make it into a ball, basically.
Yeah.
Um, so,
So yeah, can you keep talking?
Or I could pay like a wood turner, a guy, to turn me a perfect,
or girl,
or guy or girl, whatever, human. I
human.
could pay a human to turn me a sphere, but that's labor that costs like hundreds of dollars per hour.
Right. Okay, so let's get let's get into the process a little bit more, because I think this part's really interesting. So you buy this sphere from a construction company, you bring it home. What happens next? How do you figure out what map to use and take a map and make it into?
So now it's the mathematical side of globe making. So you get the sphere, you measure the diameter. It's like I'm going back to like ninth grade geometry, and like
I was
it's
so
like,
bad at
oh,
that.
this is what this is for. Like, this is why we learn these things.
So I could become a globe maker.
Yeah. So I figured out all the math, and I then downloaded open data sources, free public data. And in a geographic software, I could basically do the math to figure out the dimensions for my sheets of paper. And then I have some engineering friends that are like, don't you want to figure out how to automate all this? And I'm like, yes and no, because it was like the original intent was therapeutic.
Right.
It's like, I want to do something that requires me to be focused with my hands without looking at a computer screen, because that's what I do at my job all day.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So yeah, I get the globes from the construction supplier. They ship them to me. They're all the same size. They're all like machine cut, basically.
Okay.
And I started with the 3-inch like baseball size.
Okay.
And then I went up to a 5-inch like softball size, basically.
Right, which is like what you're using now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I just figured it actually takes about the same time to make a 3-inch as a 5-inch, because I'm not doing extra cartography and burning.
Right.
In the 3 and the 5-inch, I'm doing the same amount of burning, basically.
Right.
And stenciling and drawing and everything. So the process goes: get the wood, and then you see it in that video on Instagram. Like, I get that sheet of paper with the outline of the coastline, basically the coastlines printed from geographic data. So that's like open source geographic data coming off the internet, public domain, and it's at a certain scale. So like the thing I don't think people realize is like cartographers get to choose the level of resolution, the level of detail that goes into just the coastline. So like that, like the fjords in Norway, I can't do all of that at the scale, at the level, at the scale in which I'm burning, because it's so small. Now, if I had a giant piece of wood that was like the size of this room, sure,
Yeah.
I could print out every single inlet and fjord and channel and island and like and that would take thousands of hours to burn and draw.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it's for when you get the machine that does it for you.
or you just do like, I'm thinking my biggest size I'll ever do is probably like an 18-inch diameter sphere, maybe 20 inches. And eventually I'll go to metric, because screw the imperial system.
That's gonna be the pull quote from this event.
No, seriously.
Screw the imperial system, Jeremy Goldsmith.
Yeah, I mean, on my phone's in 24-hour military time. Like, I prefer like the way the world operates, not the way in terms of units of measurement.
Yeah.
Okay,
so you pick your scale that'll fit with.
Yeah, so like a 5-inch and 3-inch globe, you can only pack a certain amount of information onto a sphere to make it look presentable and digestible. Because if I overloaded the sphere with country boundaries and labels of like the names of every ocean and every continent or whatever, it would just get too cluttered. And that's a cartographer's choice. It's like an editing cartographic choice. It's like, what do I include and what do I leave out?
Right.
And so on my 5-inch globes, I filtered out, you can query the selection tool for all the rivers in the world. So I selected all the longest rivers in the world. So I include the coastlines and the longest rivers of the world per continent. I mean, like the top 1 or 2 or 3 longest rivers per continent. And then I cut out the paper. Oh, and then I smudge basically charcoal on the back of all the paper.
You draw the map, like what you just explained.
The map is printed out via the data.
Okay,
yeah,
got it.
Via the data, because I get the data and I just print it out on a piece of paper.
Okay.
But to make a globe, you need gores. These basically the sections of the Earth split into, it's a geometric process with a projection, so that you have each gore is shaped like almost like an ellipse, like half ellipse or something. And then you wrap that around. So you do, and then you divide based on latitude, longitude, you divide the Earth into various sections. And then, so I forget what mine are for my 5-inch globe, but it's like 30 longitudinal degrees is 1 gore, or 60 longitudinal degrees is 1 gore, and you go 360 degrees. So 6 gores, it's 60 degrees longitudinally on my gores. So I have 6 gores that wrap around my 5-inch sphere.
Got it. Okay, so you have your gores, the charcoal's on the back. What do you do next?
Cut out the paper to create the gores, and then I tape them to the sphere with the wood. And then I use a pencil, like a Japanese drawing pencil, like a nice, you go to the art store, you get nice Japanese pencils or German pencils. I mean, it's amazing what the pencil community is doing.
It's like another rabbit hole that you can go down.
Yeah, I didn't even know. Like the art world in graphite and charcoal and just drawing with pencils is like supreme. Like there's thousands of artists out there that just use graphite and charcoal and pencil only. It's like watercoloring or any media, any type of medium to do another type of medium to create what you're trying to create. So I bought these nice pencils, because there's different hardness levels. And then I use different pencils to do the basic coastline work and then all the detailed island coastline work. And I'm pressuring the pencil onto the paper, but the charcoal on the back is smudging as I press into the wood. And
Okay.
so once I do all that, then there's all this excess charcoal on my wood. So then I have to eraser off all the excess charcoal, but keep the line work from the original pressure. So it's
Yeah.
like that's a very tedious, specific process.
Yeah. And how long does that usually take for the
Just the
5 minutes?
pencil work, just the pencil
Yeah.
work and the charcoal work takes 4 to 6 hours.
Wow.
And then once I do all that, then I take the wood burning pen and I redo all the line work with the wood burning pen at various temperature settings to burn into the wood. So that's another 4 to 6 hours. And then I sand it with a sanding tool. And once I get my lathe, it'll go a lot quicker, because the lathe, I can just pop the piece of wood into the lathe and it'll start to spin. And then I can just use my hand with the sandpaper and I can just rub it and then it'll sand much faster.
Right. But
But right now
now
I'm using a flat sander and I'm like trying to move my hand with the sphere on a flat piece of sandpaper, and it takes a while. So then I sand it and then I burn it again, because some of the burn work goes away when you sand it. So I touch up burning for that, takes another 2 hours. And then I sand it again. And then I touch up burn work for another hour. So there's it's a back and forth process for you got to do it's like layers and coating basically. So just to get it smooth, to get it really clean and crisp. And once all that's done, I let it sit, let it dry, and then I clean up. Then the next day I'll come back to it, wipe it down again, try to get as much sawdust off of it. And then I'll stain it.
Right.
And then I'll do the stain, sanding, staining, sanding, staining process. So three applications of stains. And that's like with a paintbrush, with like a small fine paintbrush, because you got to get all the coastlines, especially in Canada with all the islands and parts of the Mediterranean Sea, the Black Sea, the Caspian Sea, like all these smaller seas on this small globe, all these big seas on this small globe. To get around Italy, it takes time. So I do all that, and that takes staining takes 8 to 10 hours.
Whoa.
No, probably 6 to 10 hours, depending on how many stain applications I'm going through. And then it dries out, and then it's good to go. And I put some honey beeswax on it and polish it up a bit, and then and then I'm finally done. So. Wow. I would say if I'm cranking, when I was cranking a lot of these out this past summer, this past summer, I got to my fastest one took me 18 hours to make.
Yeah, it's a lot of time.
So I would say each one is averaged 20 to 24 hours of work.
Yeah.
Let's say 20. Let's just round down.
Yeah.
For simplicity. 20 hours of work plus materials, and then it's who the hell's going to buy these things?
The Mappy Hour community, we love maps and globes.
Well, yeah, and it just started. So I envision I'm going to be doing this until I'm gray-haired, old, and can't walk type of thing.
Right, and you're already figuring out ways to make it just a little bit easier, more efficient as you, better the process.
Yeah. So
cool.
That's the process of making a pyro globe out of my mouth, but it's probably easier just to watch.
I dropped the link.
and I'll drop more videos and storytelling on how I do stuff and why and what I'm learning along the way over the next coming years.
Yeah. So since we're almost at time, if anyone has questions, now is your time to ask them in the chat. But Jeremy, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you, find a globe, that kind of stuff?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So right now I'm doing like globes. I have like 4 or 5 globes in inventory as part of my batch run that I did recently. And then I'll be moving forward. Once I'm moving locations right now personally, so I have to relocate and get back to, so like I'm accepting work on a commission basis. I'm not going to be putting more stuff out. So if you are interested in buying one, or you're just wanting to talk to me more, just send me a message directly via either my website, which is www.pyro.global, or on Instagram at pyro.globes. So I was pretty happy to get all that locked in when I was concepting this back in 2019.
Unrelated, but we just got mappyhour.com. So,
Nice.
the right domain is great. All right, so I'm sharing the link with everyone right now, so it's easy to find Jeremy. Cool. All right, so everyone should have it, and then here's Jeremy's Instagram too, so you can follow him. Okay, cool. Sweet. Well, all right, it doesn't look like we have any questions. So I mean, at least for me, I got to ask all my questions during the talk. But is there anything else like you would want to answer, or like, are there any questions that come up a lot when people see your work that I haven't asked already?
The number one question is like, wow, that's amazing. It's not a question. It's a lot of the reactions are, wow, I've never seen something like this before, which I'm like, yeah, that's my point. It's like, I wanted to do something super unique, which I feel really good about when someone says, oh, I've never seen something like this before. And that like validates my vision, which is really nice. Because it's a positive reaction usually when people see them.
Yeah.
And usually it's like, oh, the sweet globe, dude. Like, why wood?
Why are you
And,
spending 24 hours on this?
well, no one really cares, right, about that. Question I get is how much?
How much? Why don't you tell everyone? Or should we wait till they have to go to your website?
There's no prices on my website either.
Got it.
Everything is like, we got to work it out, and it's like each globe has a different level of love and time into it. So I can show you my collection and tell you the individual prices. That's why I say, just like for the time being, let's talk. They range between like $500 to $750 right now, depending on the level of work that's gone into them. And the quality of the wood, honestly. Like, I have one globe that the wood quality, like whoever made that sphere with the machine, like they took extra care and attention to it. Cause like I can tell it's like, it feels like a better quality of production on that sphere than it does on some other spheres. Like there's like, sometimes there's like slightly little bumps or something that I have to even sand further. So that depends.
Got it.
And then a lot of people ask, like, how did you think of this? Which we've already covered. Like, what's the story behind you creating this?
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that context, because it is so many different things that kind of came together to lead you to this point, which is amazing.
It's 5 years. It's about 5 years of awareness and research just to come to a point to say, all right, now I'm going to start doing something with it. Like with my like digestion of the geographic world, the data, the production, the medium, the time, the tools. Like, it was like, I can't just, and that's and I think Justin covered it. As a maker, you're just like, you finally start doing, and you're just like, why wasn't I doing this? Like, I could have started doing this like years ago. And it was just like, people, if you're ever inspired to want to create something, whether it be for work or for a hobby, or for me, it was just like I wanted to do something that was therapeutic, that was different from like reading or meditating or hiking. And like there's certain days you're just like I'm not inspired to go hiking. I live in the woods. I live in Evergreen, Colorado. Like there's foxes and moose and elk and bear in my backyard, basically. And sometimes I'm just like, yeah, you're human, and you're just like, you know what? I need to focus my energy on something else for
Yeah.
the day, after work or on the weekend. And especially on like we don't have many gray days here, but when we just had one in spring now, and it's just like, oh, this is a great day to be at home and make some tea and work on a globe.
Awesome.
So
Yeah. I love it. Cool. Well, Liz says shout out to the pencil community, and Rachel says very, very cool. Definitely following on IG. So I feel like that's a great place to close this conversation out. So Jeremy, thanks for being here and being part of the Mappy Hour community and being willing to share your work and just your story with us. Really
shout
appreciate
out
it.
to the public libraries of America, because I'm at a public library right now with really good Wi-Fi. Like I said, I
Yes.
live in the woods and my internet at home is not as great. And we did have technical difficulties today, but for the most part, it went really well. And the public libraries, I mean, hit them up. It's a great place to go work or go study or go do a video chat with people in the community. Whatever it is, it's a great place.
I'll get behind this. Let's end with a PSA for public libraries. Use them, support them. We love public libraries. All right, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.